Hey, welcome back to the Rowdy Rig Show. So today we got the $700 BMW. We're gonna be doing some repairs on it, mostly coolant related. I got a couple coolant leaks that I need to fix so that we can make it drivable again. The car was pretty beat up when I first got it, but I've been doing a couple repairs here and there. For the most part, I made it stop leaking. So I put a new oil pan gasket, a filter housing gasket, valve cover gasket, a bunch of different stuff. Yeah, hold on, buddy. Just a bunch of different stuff so that I don't have any more leaks on the driveway. It was pretty rough. It also had a low oil pressure, which I believe to be a valve seal. So I put some of that Bars Keep seal replenisher and it went away. So I think I got pretty lucky with that. But let me show you a little bit of the car just so you guys can see why I'm trying to keep it or trying to put it back on the road, because it's a pretty good car. That's the interior. It used to have wood grain panel, but I changed it to black just so it could look nicer. The leather's very plush, as you can see. The car does have 210,000 miles on it, but it runs like a dream. I did rear brakes. I need to do front brakes on it. So we'll be doing that eventually. But right now, let's get to it. We're starting with taking off the air box and the piping. This little vacuum hose right here, I'm disconnecting all the little wires that go to the alternator, to the mass airflow. Me taking off the shroud right here. First you got to remove the expansion tank. It has a little clip on, and then it goes by quick. You don't really see it, but I took off the clutch fan, and now this is me right here just pulling it up. I gotta unclip some hoses down here, pull out the auxiliary water pump, and it's out. See, as you guys can see, it wasn't too bad to take off the clutch fan and the radiator shroud, the air box. Probably took like 5 minutes max. Another thing that we're gonna have to be doing is disconnecting all these wires right here. All these plugs. The plugs are very simple. They're just a push plug. So you just push it like this and pull it out. Very simple. And for the most part, all these plugs, they only reach the sensor they belong to. So you can't really get them mixed up. Except for one down here. There's one, it's the knock sensor. It comes from there and it plugs into the whole little module or whatever you want to call the housing. That's where it plugs into. That one you could get messed up. That one you could, you know, like some of these do plug into other sensors, but for the most part, they all reach only the sensor that they belong to. So don't worry about getting them mixed up too much. And if you really worry about, just, you know, take some pictures or whatever. But for the most part, it's not that hard. Now that we got this removed, the next step is this diesel valve. We're gonna remove this diesel valve so that we could get to the idle control valve, which is right under here, so that we could get to the throttle body. Once we remove these 3 things or 4 things, we're gonna have to move this whole wiring housing over to the side so that we could reach a bolt down there that is also holding the intake manifold. So once we get to that part, we can start taking out the intake manifold. But for now, we're just gonna remove this diesel valve. So right here, we're just removing the piping to get to the diesel valve a little better. I believe it was 2 bolts, T40s. Come out real easy. Once that's out, you got to remove the plastic piping that goes to the throttle body. Once that's out, you got 3 10mm bolts that hold all the wiring together. It's mounted right on the throttle body, so you got to remove it so you could access the 4 10mm bolts that hold the throttle body in. Once those bolts are out, you got easy access to the throttle body and the idle control. Okay, so in order to remove this housing, or whatever you want to call this, wiring boss land or whatever, you can't remove it completely, but you do have to move it out the way. And one of the ways to do that is also by having to disconnect them from up here in the front, and then you're gonna tuck these wires back that way so that you have enough slack to move them out of the way. But like I had said before, they're pretty simple to get out the way. Let me just move this out the way. This one's that one's the only one that's a little different. This one you gotta actually clamp it from the sides. For the most part, they're all the same. All these push tabs, Bmw really made some nice plugs like this. It makes everything so much easier. For reals though. Okay, so now we're back over here, and I believe I got another sensor I had to disconnect, so I can pull this down this way. Oil pressure sensor, I believe it's called. Get this out. There. See, now you have room to move all this spaghetti. You'll be able to get out the way when you need to. So now we're going back to the IA valve, or what I call it. This is the idle control valve, ICV, idle control valve. This top one and the throttle body. So I believe it was a T40 for these ones, and these were 10s. So 4 10s and 2 T40s. So right here, the idle control valve was a little bit difficult to take out just because it was wedged in there pretty good. So just use a screwdriver to pry it out. Slowly, gently, don't mess anything up. Once that's out, there's a 16mm bolt holding the intake manifold on. It's hard to see, but it's down there. Make sure you take it out. Right here, we're just unbolting the intake manifold. On my car, for some reason, they're 11mm bolts. Just be careful not to drop them because sometimes you lose them down there. Also, I would suggest you take off the fuel line and the plugs. That way you don't mess anything up. But I took a shortcut and kind of bit me in the butt. Yo, what's up, guys? So yesterday I left off taking off the intake manifold. This is the progress that I made so far. I think I'm just gonna leave it there. I got new gaskets for the manifold, but these are actually the hard lines that I want to remove. There it is. See, one has a bolt. The other one kind of just slides in there. Those are the lines. Also, these ones back here. This one right here. And I believe these ones to the heater hose. All of these lines are coming off. I'm putting new ones. I removed the under tray, as you can see. So I'm gonna start draining the coolant. Which in hindsight, I probably should have done that first, but I'm gonna do it now and start removing hoses. So let me put you down. It's kind of embarrassing, but that drain bolt, I couldn't really take it off. I don't know if it came off or you just twist it off a little bit. So I just went with plan B and removed the lower hose and let the coolant drain in that way. This right here was that top hose I needed to replace because I had a broken nipple on the other side and I wasn't going to be able to connect it to the new expansion tank. But this little clamp that comes on the hose, it was so hard to like get it in and clamp in the right way. I was just struggling. And then at one point I dropped the bolt. So I had to get it with a magnet, put it back up and just keep trying until I finally got it. It was pretty annoying. A couple tries later, it finally went on though. After this, I just started getting the expansion tank ready. I take off the lower hoses and get the new one ready to go. I put a new hose on that one as well, and I lay it to the side. Okay guys, so as I'm removing these hoses, the one for the auxiliary water pump, this hose goes down here and it is clamped down here. Let me see if I can get you. Down here there's a clamp, and the only way to get this clamp off is with a 10mm bolt. So I'm gonna go ahead and unbolt that, and then that hose goes over here. I'll show you right now when I get to this part. It goes right here behind all this spaghetti wire. It's right here to this hard line. So that looks like a 13 right there, and then it goes down this way to the block. So let me get that done, and I'll show you what's up right now. Right here, I'm removing one of the hoses that goes to the auxiliary pump. These coolant hoses are pretty easy to disconnect. They got like a little ring clamp. You just pull it out with a pig and slide it out. And when you're putting them back in, you just lock it in place and slide it in until you hear it click. But right here, I gotta remove two 13mm bolts on these hard lines to be able to pull it out. And once I did remove them, I was kind of struggling a little bit on getting enough space to pull them out. So I had to get a 19mm wrench untying the oil line so I could wiggle it out. It's a good thing we're doing this, because as you can see, look at this. It's all bad. A lot of corrosion. A lot of buildup. It's a good thing we're doing this. Fix you right up. Right here, I tried to remove the line, but I kind of struggled, so I decided to take off the hard line first. And I thought it was two 13mm bolts, but it was actually one. The other one was just connected to a knock sensor that I took off by accident. I just put it back in. I also struggle on taking this one out from the block because of the oil line, so I untied it again just to be able to wiggle it out. Once that was done, I tried removing the coolant hose once again. I think I was able to do it this time. I just struggled a little bit. Right here, I found leftover plastic from removing the hard lines, and this is me just trying to remove it without getting too much inside the cavities. The one leading to the water pump, I did drop a little bit in there, but it was so brittle, hopefully it just, the water pump just dissolves it. I also dropped a little bit into the one that leads to the cylinder head. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to get that plastic out. Let's see how that goes. Hopefully it goes a little better than the other one, because that one does go into the block, and I don't want to get stuff caught in the cavities. So let's see if we can get it out without making too much of a mess. So unfortunately, a big chunk did go into the block, so I'm gonna have to pull out the vacuum and see if I can vacuum it out. I don't want to risk it, not in the block, so I'm gonna just do whatever I can to see if I can get that little piece out. It was a little piece, but I'm gonna try to get it out. Right here, I was just trying to remove that piece. It was kind of stubborn. I couldn't get in with the vacuum that good, at least not with that attachment. So I found a hose that fits the end and it fits the hole, and I just pushed it in there and made sure I got all that residue. Putting on the new hard lines was pretty easy. Just make sure you put on the bottom one before you put on the top one. It makes your life a whole lot easier. Make sure you tighten all these 13mm bolts. You don't want to have to come back and do this job again. And don't forget about that 10mm bolt. Right here, I'm just putting the new line that goes from the hard line to the auxiliary pump. That leads from there, it leads back to the expansion tank. Make sure I reclamp it. Make sure I put every bolt back where I got it from. Right here, I had to drop the intake manifold back into its place just so I could have access to this. Okay, so I just took off this hose on the back. This one leads, I believe it was to the expansion tank. you some light. Yeah, so it's this hose right here. Let's just take it out. Damn, I dropped the hose clamp. Okay, so I'm saving all my hoses because some of these ones were still good. You know, cut them up, do something with it, but for the most part, they weren't leaking or anything. I just replacing them. And this is the new one about to go in. So let me put it in real quick. I'll tell you guys what's next. Okay guys, so I just tied up all the hoses. I think those are all the hoses that came with my order. I know I'm missing a couple more, but FCP Girl is lagging on sending the parts out. I've been waiting for like 2 weeks already. I can't wait any longer, so I'm just putting them on. I went back just to double check everything is tight and secured. I don't want to have to redo this job again. I don't want no leaks, no problems, so just make sure everything's on there good. Now what I'm about to do is connect these hoses. The auxiliary pump is right there. It's hanging down there somewhere, but I'm about to connect it to the expansion tank with its new hoses. And then this was a used hose. Leave it there. Let me see what else I got over here. I think they sent me a double. This is a double, so I gotta send that back, make sure I get my money. And then they sent me these other two, but I'm gonna send those back. I'm not gonna waste my time putting those on. They go to like behind the heater core or some shit. I don't know, but they're kind of hard to get to. I might get to it, I don't know. But see, they sent me another double, little tiny one for the radiator. And then I got over here, I got manifold seal. I'm waiting on brakes. They haven't sent me the brakes. Throttle body gasket, filter. I ain't gonna be doing oil change on this car pretty soon. I got the cabin air filters. I also got an air filter coming in. Just a bunch of little stuff. So right here, I'm just putting in the new expansion tank, reconnecting these hoses. One of these hoses, I tried to connect it and I kept putting it on backwards or like upside down. And I kind of thought I messed it up, but it actually went in pretty fine afterwards. And then right here, I'm just putting on the new, I'm taking off the old gasket, I'm about to put on the new one. There's some little pieces that fall out, so just make sure you put them back in when you're putting in the gasket. And then right here, there were some bolts missing, so I just put them on there, made sure it was on there nice and tight. Unfortunately, I did break something in the process of taking off the manifold. It's a little check valve that goes to the brake booster into the back of the manifold. I might have to pause the video right here because I might have to replace this part before I go any further. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to disassemble a whole lot again for this part, just to replace this part. So I'm gonna see if I can find the part, see if I could order it, and get it pretty soon. That way I can finish up this project. Talk about bad luck, guys, but it was my fault. I should have taken off the intake manifold the right way, which would be removing the fuel rail and the plugs to the fuel rail and pushing them off to the side so that I could get off the manifold. And I tried to take a shortcut without having to do all that. You know, I was like, maybe I could just pull the manifold to the back and access all this. And unfortunately, that's what caused me to break this. So, you know, shit happens. Thanks for watching though. Stay tuned for part 2 of the hose makeover. hopefully on this next episode we can get that booster line fixed and finish up with the cooling bleeding and anything else that we had to do in regards to this small project that we got. And I'll be updating you guys on what's the next modifications or upgrades we'll be doing to this car. And I'll give you a walk around so you guys can see the $700 Beamer. Stay tuned.